Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where today we're getting a chance to take a look at the 2024 Specialized Roubaix SL8. And this Roubaix SL8 is the base model variant, meaning it's coming with a 10-speed Tiagra drivetrain, but it still features their very lightweight FACT 10R carbon frame. So in this video, we're going to check out what you get when you buy the base model of a very nice endurance frame set. Then, of course, we'll find out what it weighs. So if this kind of thing is interesting to you, stick around and let's check out this bike together. Talking Specialized Roubaix. Now, the Roubaix has been around for a long time, and it was one of the first of the endurance road bikes. And when you go way back in the day, an endurance road bike was simply that it would have a taller front end to the bike, a little bit shorter reach compared to a performance race bike, and then a frame set that's going to be designed around additional compliance. And all of that still stands, but gets turned up to, let's call it 11, even though this is an SL8 for 2024, because the SL8 takes all of that comfort and capability of an endurance road bike, but adds some tire clearance and really upgrades the bump compliance compared to prior bikes. And how they do that is with this 10R frame, which is only about 950 grams in a size 54. That 950 gram frame is about as light as what you would get in a performance bike from most brands, although the top-end S-Works variant of this bike with a 12R frame comes in at a scant 825 grams. However, the trick of the party here is right there. So that is what's called a future shock. It gives 20 millimeters of up and down compliance in the front end of the bike. And there are 3 levels of these, as well as this is the 3rd generation. So let's call this one the Future Shock 3.1. And the 3.1 indicates 3rd generation, but the 0.1 means there's no on-the-fly adjustment or specific damper. There's 3 levels of these, the 3.2, which does give you a lockout capability or near enough, and the 3.3 that adds in a damper just like a traditional shock. But the idea here is you suspend the rider's hands rather than the wheel. So instead of the wheel coming up and slowing down the momentum of the bike's going to be able to cruise through while suspending the rider. Now, this particular shock does come with 3 different springs. The medium is what comes installed out of the box, and then out back they have another trick piece of suspension, and that's via the seat post. So if we look all the way down there, the seat post clamp, can you see it? Yeah, it's down about here. And what that allows for is it makes the seat post elongated compared to others, as well as they have some additional room so that the rear end can have flex as well. That goes back to the mantra of suspending the rider to keep the bike going, and you'll see that some of the design and the frame shape begins to be reminiscent of, say, their Tarmac or the Athos frame. And that's because they're still utilizing what Specialized calls their rider-first technology, which means that the bike, all of the frame shapes and tubing are specific to the frame size, not just scaled up or down. It has their free foil shape library, so some aerodynamic advantage, although that's not the key reason that you might purchase this bike, as well as they've taken the learnings that they had from the finite element analysis of their Athos frame set, their super lightweight road bike, and dialed that in here. So you're not going to have additional carbon where you don't need it, but a bike that should be able to perform really well even at a pretty light weight compared to most of the bikes today. Now, one thing you'll notice when we get to checking out the bike is lightweight is probably not going to be your first word, although I have not yet weighed this. But this bike having Tiagra and being a base model does mean it's coming with a bit heavier group set than what we would get on the other Wonder bikes. So it's a Tiagra 2 up front by 10 speed out back, rocking through this 11 to 34 tooth cassette, so a super wide range, and a 50-34 chainring combination up front. Of course, pushing through a threaded bottom bracket. Attached to that, getting it down the road, is going to be some 32 millimeter tire, and these 32 millimeter tires go through a frame clearance of up to 40 millimeters wide. So pretty solid, and those tires get mounted up on the Axis Elite wheel set. This is a tubeless capable wheel set. The tires are not. You would have to, of course, tape them, get a valve and sealant, but they are through axle up front with a 12x100 and 12x142 out back. And another thing I really like about this bike is although many of the base models we're starting to see are coming with a mechanical disc brake setup, this Tiagra 10-speed drivetrain rocks 160mm rotors front and rear with 2-piston hydraulic calipers. So that's all to say that you've got a pretty cool spec for a entry-level, or starting price point I should say, carbon endurance bike. And personally, having ridden a whole bunch and owned all sorts of drivetrains, aside from the weight, Tiagra is really nothing to look down at, so it could be a really cool bike. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and grab the weight and let me know what you think down in the comments below. And the actual weight for the Roubaix SL8 in a size 58 comes in at 21.26 pounds.